ignorance is bliss, right? Until it's not. I do feel like approaching our husbands takes a ton of courage. And so no matter his response, I just want women to know that they are strong, that they can do this and they can get through it.
Welcome to the Intertwined Life podcast. I am your host, Jenny Zentz. I am a wife and a mom on a mission. I've got a passion to help women discover practical ways to apply the power of God's word to our everyday stuff. I truly believe that our walks with the Lord should be seamlessly intertwined with our everyday lives. It should affect every move we make and every breath we take. So come on, let's do life together. You've got this, because He's got you. Hey guys, welcome back to the Intertwined Life podcast. I'm Jenny Zentz, and I'm excited to be here with you. If this is your first time, welcome. I'm so glad you found us. And if this is your 121st time, yay! Thank you so much for listening. And by the way, if you're a listener, if you have found this podcast and you have found some value from it, would you do me a favor, especially if you're on Apple Podcast, would you go down and click those 5 stars and write a little review. Let us know what you think. Let us know that you're being encouraged. It means a lot on this end of the microphone to know that there is impact being had and there are people actually listening, but it also helps the show get found so we can help other women just discover practical ways to apply the power of God's word to our everyday stuff. So if you've never done that, I would really appreciate it if you take the time to do that now. It'd be a huge blessing. But I'm really looking forward to, speaking of blessings, sharing today's interview with you. So I recently sat down with author, speaker, and ministry leader Jody Allen, and she is here to talk about a difficult subject, but a conversation that often really needs to be had. Jody's new book is called Hidden Heartache: Finding Courage When Your Husband Struggles with Pornography. And she is really bravely and transparently bringing into the light a conversation that probably needs to be had in all of our marriages, regardless of whether it is a current struggle or not. Because when we expose those secret things or the secret temptations to the light and the grace of Jesus, there is so much power in that, especially if we're proactive before there's even a problem, right? It makes a big difference. So I enjoyed talking with Jody. I enjoyed her fresh perspective, her willingness to just go there and have the hard conversations. And Jody offers help and hope to women facing the same silent battle. And she's here to encourage us that God can transform heartache into healing and lead us into a place of peace. So enjoy this episode, and I will catch you next time. All right, Miss Jody Allen, welcome to the Intertwined Life podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited you're here. We've been talking about how excited we are that meeting each other through the cyberways and all the connections of people we already know. So I'm so glad that we actually get to do this because we feel like we already know each other. So fun. So tell my listeners a little bit about yourself, your family, your life, hobbies, passions, all the good stuff.
Well, I live in North Carolina, right outside of Charlotte. I have 21-year-old twins, and they just graduated from college 2 weeks ago.
Awesome.
So I'm in a completely different phase of life.
Yeah, congrats to them and you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. And I am divorced. I like to take naps on Sunday. I enjoy board games, most board games, just not Monopoly.
Yes.
It's not, it takes way too long. And I love ice cream. Mint chocolate chip and moose tracks are my favorite.
Yes.
They're my favorite.
Yes.
I am one of the 2 people in America who don't drink coffee. I am not a coffee drinker. I am on staff at my church where I've been for a little over 11 years. I lead our women's ministry. I lead our First Impressions team. And just last year, I published my very first book.
Yes. And that is why we are here. So I am excited. Usually I ask people, what brought you to this place in your work and ministry? I feel like we're going to really get into that when we talk about your book, but give me a little backstory, like, when you came to Christ, how that journey of your life that brought you to this point in the work that you do now.
Well, I grew up in the church. I was one of those people who went to church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. Grew up in the church. When I was in college, I was part of InterVarsity, leading groups, and just have always been in the church. So it's a no-brainer really that I'm working at a church. Although my uncle was the pastor of the church and I saw the inner workings of the church and I thought, I don't really want to do that. But you know what? Here I
Sometimes
am
the more you
11 years
know.
later. And I love it because, people are people, whether they're
Yeah.
in the church or outside the church. But
Yes.
I do love it. But you know how a lot of people, when they're younger, when they're like 5 and they know I'm going to be a teacher, or I'm going to be a doctor, or I'm going to be a firefighter, and they just know and they do that. And I'm just not one of those people. I am 54, Jenny, and I am still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I always felt bad because I had kind of meandered my way through life to get to where I am. And I was in counseling one day because I do love a good counseling session.
Yes.
I was in
Yes.
counseling one day and I was telling my counselor that, and she said, well, why do you feel bad about that? It's just a different way to get there. So that was really freeing for me. But like a lot of people, when we go through difficult circumstances, they bring us to where we are today. And that's the case with me too. And several years ago, I discovered my husband's pornography addiction. I discovered pornography on our computer. And it's that discovery that took me down a dark, lonely road. And interesting enough, I was at my church that I'm at now, and they had a job opening. And so they offered me a job, which I needed a job because I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And we eventually went the road of divorce. And so I needed a job. And so here I am. That's how I meandered and got to where I am today.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm telling you, the way God lines things up for us, he knows what's coming before we do. Right. I always say there's no surprises to him.
Right.
He's thinking ahead.
It was certainly a surprise to me, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about that. That brings us to the main reason we're here right now is your new book. And it is called Hidden Heartache: Finding Courage When Your Husband Struggles with Pornography. And this is a topic that is not talked about enough, but is dealt with a lot. And a lot more than people want to admit, especially in the church. And so I am excited, as excited I can be about this topic, that that you have used your story to put it out there and to say, God, let it not be in vain. And
Right.
take this and do what you will with it. And so I'm glad you're here to shine some light into this dark and scary and probably very lonely a lot of times situation. So tell us the story and the journey behind this book.
Well, Hidden Heartache is my story of walking through that dark season, but it's also just a collection of practical tools that I gained along the way. But I think most importantly, it is just the truths that God taught me when I walked through this. In 2013, when I found pornography on our home computer, which I had made several discoveries in our marriage, early on in our marriage and several times throughout. But in 2013, I had reached a point where I said, no more. And so I was no longer going to allow pornography in our relationship. And so that was after about 19 years of marriage. And I felt like I had always wanted to write a book. I was never really a writer. I was the girl who was skipping the English classes because I am not an English girl. I was more of a math girl. But I felt like when we started this journey that I would probably write a book. So I got a completely separate journal and started journaling in that and writing down verses and quotes and poems and that sort of thing so that I could write. But I really felt the need to write this book because there are so many women, like you said, who are in similar shoes because the need is so great. I don't know if there are some statistics out there. 1 out of 5 mobile searches is for pornography.
Oh my goodness.
That is a lot of pornography. And so I think the statistics are staggering. I don't know if you're familiar with Covenant Eyes, which is an internet filter, and they've done some pretty extensive research on pornography. And they say that 64% of Christian men struggle with pornography. And 1 out of 5 youth pastors and 1 out of 7 pastors currently struggle with pornography. So it's a big deal, not just in the world, but it's a big deal in the church. And so I just felt like I needed to have a voice. I needed to have a voice in that because I had walked that road. But another reason why I wrote is because there are so many women just like me who are living it hidden. They're not telling anybody, which I use ChatGPT to work on that title, Hidden Heartache, because that is exactly what it is. It is a hidden heartache because women, they're too ashamed to talk about it because if they tell somebody, it makes it seem like that there's something wrong with them.
Yes.
So, we've got girls who are leading Bible study, who are going to church, and if 64% of Christian men are struggling, that means 2 out of 3 women are probably walking the same road that we're walking. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I could not be stingy. I need to share what God had given me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also there are a lot of books that are written. I wouldn't say a lot. That's a stretch, but there are several books that are written by wives, for wives. But a lot of those, the couple is still married, which obviously is a huge success. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we want. But my story is different.
Yeah.
I'm divorced, and I just want women to know that they can get through this and they can flourish and their life can be great. They can be whole, even
Mhm.
if it doesn't turn out the way they hoped.
Yes, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
even if, I think that's the kicker right there, because we also want to believe, okay, but the Christian story is,
Right.
in the end, it all turns out, and
Yeah.
happily ever after. And you're right, and obviously Jesus said, to look at a woman with lust in your heart is the same as committing adultery.
Mhm.
You have been betrayed, and there are people who, yes, you can come through that. So that, share as much as you want, as little as you want, or just say, no, I'm not going there. But I am curious about that journey for you, how, when you brought this up and you confronted your husband at some point, I'm assuming, and this kind of all came to the surface, did you guys seek counseling together? Did he try? Was he just like, nope, not going to happen? Like, can you share a little bit of that journey coming to the
Uh,
point where you realize it's just not going to resolve in the way that you would
yes.
hope?
Well, I think when I discovered it when we first got married, it's funny how you have different expectations when you're first married and it happened. I remember being devastated and crying and
Hmm.
led him to the computer, and I was heartbroken, and not necessarily because of pornography, because I really didn't know about pornography back in the day. It was the late
Sure.
90s, which makes me sound really old, Jenny, late 90s.
No, hey, I got you. I got you. My husband and I have been married. We've been 19 years married now, actually. So no, I get it. Because I mean, I didn't have a computer in my house until 99. And
Oh,
now, granted, I was a teenager, I know we're a little bit apart in age, but yeah, it was like the dial-up and the DOS and the
exactly.
whole thing. So I can
Exactly.
only imagine how much harder it would be to find. Who knew that was even there in the 90s?
Yeah, so I found it, and I just remember being devastated by the deception.
Yeah.
And then several other times pornography surfaced in our marriage. And because you don't know what you don't know, I just thought, oh, okay, well, he's going to his men's group, or he's going to counseling, and oh, it's all taken care of. It's going to be fine. And then as it popped up, I just was so naive. I just was just so naive. But
Mhm.
then in 2013, when I discovered it on our computer, really for the last time, I just dealt with it a different way, because I said, no more. We do not have to tolerate pornography in our relationship. And so I just had to choose a different way. And so that's when I asked him to move out. And we went on a 2-year journey
Mhm.
of counseling. He went to a residential treatment center in Georgia for 3 months, and we have spent a ton of money. Jenny, we could go on a nice vacation for the amount of money we spend on counseling, but
Mhm.
that's what you do when it's the only thing you know to do.
Yeah.
And I would not change that for anything. And so all 4 of us, we have 2 kids, and we have been through our shared counseling, and it just became apparent that the end was going to be divorce. And so
Mhm.
that was such a hard road. There's just so much shame involved in divorce. I mean, pornography for sure, but I think in the Christian culture, there's a lot of shame at divorce, and nobody was shaming me. It's just that internal dialogue.
Sure. Sure. You're like, this shouldn't happen to me, right?
Right.
Here we're a
Right.
Christian couple and blah, 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 work for the church or, whatever. It
Right.
just
And I'm like, well,
happening.
this is not what we dream of when we get married.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. No, it's an area that there's so much hidden heartache. I think divorce within the church falls into that category too,
I
of
agree.
something that happens often but isn't being talked about as much. So people aren't getting the healing sometimes they need because they're like afraid. And yeah, isolation can
Right.
be such a trick. So how did you walk in community in that time? Did it take you a long time to get to the point where you were able to bring others alongside to help you on that journey?
I think it took me a while to acknowledge that. Like, I remember, because I lead a Bible study, and I remember going to Bible study on Thursday mornings, and I thought, well, I don't want to tell anybody because I don't want to cast him in a bad light, which in
Mhm.
reality, it was me that I don't want to cast in a bad light, because when you tell somebody your husband is struggling with pornography, there's this internal thinking that there's something wrong with me.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with me. I mean, of course I have my own issues, but
We all have issues, but
we all have issues. But so for the longest time, I did not tell people.
yeah.
But when that happened, I remember making the hard choice. And I remember thinking, this is going to change not just my family, but our whole lives.
Yeah. Yes.
And of course, I hoped that we would get to the point where we would have reconciliation. We could go through all the things, but that did not pan out. So when I finally made the choice, I was selective on who I talked to, but I did bring a lot of people. And I will say the body of Christ really was a huge part of our healing process. People that just came alongside of us that would fix my car or change my tire or just that sort of thing, that would bring us meals. And I'm so thankful for the body of Christ.
That's so good. It is. Isolation's such a trick from Satan, and the more isolated we are, oh my gosh, the scarier, the harder, the more we believe it's only us and what's wrong with us. And, we get in our heads and we can hear those thoughts. And when we bring them into the light, so many times there's somebody standing there going, hey, I've been there too.
For sure.
And now, you're being that for someone else. And I'm so thankful that you are, because we need to find that.
And Jesus didn't live that way. I mean, he had his 12 and he had his 3. So why do we think we should be any different? I mean, he just modeled what we should do for our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And knowing we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones.
Right.
Whatever it is we're going through, we're not the only ones.
True.
So, okay, here's a question for you. The subtitle of your book is Finding Courage When Your Husband Struggles with Pornography. Courage to do what?
Courage to choose a different way. Courage to choose a different way, because I feel like we live in so much hidden heartache and so much shame. I wanted my book to be an invitation, just to invite women out of that and to live a different way. It'll be hard for sure, but I wanted to invite women to live differently.
That's beautiful. So what are some of the warning signs you encourage women to look for?
Hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
And I look back at some of the things now. I'm like, oh, okay, yes, I can see that now. And so I've got some signs for you, but I also want to say that sometimes these signs doesn't mean that it's pornography.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So I do want to say that, but I think one of the things for me was just staying up after I went to bed. And I think we all work, we bring home our work from time to time. And if you I work from home, so it's hard to turn our brains off. But I think if our husband is staying up late at night while we've gone to bed already, and that happens habitually, then I feel like could be a sign. Maybe he's just a hard worker and he's got a lot of work to do, but I feel like that is something to take note of. And it's hard to go to bed by yourself. It's just a lonely place to be. So I feel like that is one thing just to be aware of. And then spending a lot of time in the bathroom. We all want a little privacy, but I feel like if our husbands spend a lot of time in the bathroom, that could be a red flag.
Interesting. Yeah.
Also not making eye contact because of the shame. A lot of men who are struggling with pornography, they will not make eye contact, and not just with their wife, but we had a neighbor that when we lived in a different house, she said to me, have you ever noticed that he doesn't make eye contact with other people? So it wasn't just me. So just not making eye contact because they're living in so much shame.
Probably especially Christian men.
Especially Christian women, because, we're trying to hide it. Yeah. And then maybe a change in sex drive. Maybe long gone are the days that you have intimate time together and you just kind of feel rejected now. Or it could be on the other extreme. There's just this increased interest in having sex. And I think, for the record, I just want to say about that is we do not have to compete with pornography.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to win.
Yeah,
we don't have to do all the things because we are not going to win.
Yeah. I think that's when you said that warning sign, I would think it would be, if it's the increase, it's also consistent disappointment with it not being what he wanted it to be, or the way he, or almost like he's expecting something from me that is not me, or whatever, something where the expectation and the reality are not matching. and you
Right.
just don't feel like, yeah.
Or
Like,
on
I don't
the
know how to put that in words, but I think you understand.
right, but or on the flip side where he is meeting his needs otherwise, and then he's not interested in you because pornography is all take. And
Mhm.
when you're intimate, it's give.
Yeah.
And so there is no giving because he's already taken everything that he needs to take.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think another one is just having trouble with arousal, not to be graphic or anything,
No, that's okay.
but when the body
Put
receives
it
this,
out there.
the high amount of pleasure from pornography, it just makes real life intimate situations for the wife way less stimulating. So the more that pornography is consumed, the less appealing an encounter with his wife becomes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's, and we see all the commercials for all the medications.
Yeah.
And
All the
is it
ED.
possible that we have these medications because men are already pleasing themselves
Mm-hmm.
with pornography?
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, just
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, if we describe our relationship as detached or disconnected or maybe avoidant, then we just might be lacking that emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
And pornography really could be part of that. I mean, maybe not. There could be plenty of other things
Sure.
going on, but because pornography doesn't require intimacy, so we don't, they don't need us. They don't need
Mm-hmm.
us when they're
Mm-hmm.
consuming pornography. Also, I think secrecy with devices, if they're constantly changing their password or they're deleting their history. Now, I think that's probably um, a little more, what's the term I'm looking for? Seen. Like you can see that they're changing their password.
Sure.
But I think that one. But then another one is probably mood swings. And
Mm-hmm.
if maybe they struggle with depression or being defensive or irritable or angry or withdrawing from their spiritual life or from family,
Mm-hmm.
those could be signs that pornography is kind of looming in the background. And I mean, that's symptoms for other things too. So I don't want to
Absolutely.
assume that it's pornography, but this is something this is something that was in play for us. ADHD is truly an overlooked
Mm.
coexisting condition because a lot of
Interesting.
people that have ADHD also have addiction issues. So, I mean, that's something to consider.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and I think it's like you're saying, it doesn't necessarily mean all these things, oh, it's definitely pornography. But
Right.
what it does mean is, hey, maybe if you're noticing this, it's time to have a conversation,
Right.
whatever it is. But I think that it's so helpful to our husbands is just to be able to call things what they are, acknowledge that
Mhm.
we're all weak. We all
Mhm.
have different temptations and tendencies and struggles. And we know these struggles are out there. Plus, we
Right.
know, especially as Christian couples, Satan's going to use all the tools in his toolbox to try to
Right.
keep us from having that abundant life and being, what God would have us be.
Right.
And so, yes, it's out there. We're in a world, and if it can be thrown in his face or her
Yeah.
face, it will be.
Right.
And so something, my husband and I, we just talked about, hey, I know you travel a lot for work. I know that pornography is a thing, whether or not
Right.
you struggle with it or not, it's a thing. And you are in a vulnerable situation,
Right.
traveling so much, being alone so much. So let's just, one, I acknowledge that that can be a struggle. So it's not like has to be a secret where
Right.
would have to be ashamed if he ever even had a struggle with it because I'm saying, okay, I get this. This is a thing. But let's talk about this and let's put up some safety measures because we know it exists. So
Right.
you can just pretend like it doesn't exist and it's never going to happen to you, or you can put up some measures in place. So,
Right.
we set up some passcodes to different things that only I know just for his own peace of mind to know that he can be safeguarded
That's great.
in those situations because it's tough. And you just have conversations. You've got to have communication about
For
things.
sure. For
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, because putting your head in the sand is not going to make it
exactly.
go away.
Exactly. Exactly. So, what are some best practices for approaching your husband?
Well, I think talking to your husband about pornography is just really scary because there are so many emotions already. You're probably feeling rejected. You're probably devastated. And if you're like me, you're probably ticked off. I'm just very
Oh,
mad. But
of
I think
course.
because I had experienced it for so long and it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm done with this. I'm done with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think uh, there are a few things that'd be helpful. And this is going to sound like a really spiritual answer, but I'm going to say it because I think it needs to be done. We should pray. We
Mm-hmm.
should absolutely pray.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
sometimes we spout off words or without praying or without some forethought. And if that's happened, I would hope that you would not feel condemned about that, because we are people after all.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's important to seek the Lord, to seek his guidance, to seek every single thing that he wants to give us. I often pray, Lord, give me what I don't even know to ask for.
Yes. Yes.
So I do feel like, just if we could just pray. I think it's hard when you're living in the moment, but if we could pray, I think that's just so important. And then try to quiet our minds, because for me, when I found pornography on our computer back in 2013, my mind was all over the place. And I was immediately like, oh, okay, so this is from a Canon camera. So let me find things that were taken, pictures that were taken with a Nikon camera, or all these camera brands, which, I
Wow.
mean, that was helpful for me, because then I could see, like, this is where we are. But I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes we just need to quiet our minds. We need to take some deep breaths
Mm-hmm.
and just get ourselves in a better spot.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe even some worship music that might help. I know when my husband first moved out, I kept worship music on the entire day. I'm not one of those people who leaves your TV on all day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hardly ever turn mine on, but that from morning to night, I had worship music playing in my house, just because I felt like that helped me quiet my mind and just
Yeah.
put me in a better perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think the other thing is, when we think about talking to our husband, is we should maybe consider the timing, because sometimes you just do it because now's the time and you just do it. But maybe we consider, are there distractions? Are the kids here? Is everybody hungry? Is everybody tired? So we
Yes.
might have a more productive conversation
Mm-hmm.
if there are just less distractions, and we just uh, choose the right time to talk about it. But
Yeah.
here is one of my favorite things, Jenny. I wish that I could say that I had done this really well in person, but I'm much better at doing this on paper, which I'm all about. Write some things out and just read it, because then it's well thought out. But one of mine is just to use I statements instead of you statements,
Yes. Yes.
because it's just less inflammatory. And
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of feelings wheel. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I just love a feelings wheel. I just love it. I love it, because I think
I'll link
most,
to one on Amazon because my counselor actually had the one that you set it up on the table. It's got a little stand and everything, and
oh,
it goes
very
like three
nice.
layers. And yeah, but anyway.
Very nice. Well, I have some blocks, some feelings blocks. And I was like,
Mm,
wow, that's fancy. A friend of mine gave them to me. But I think that most of us probably grew up, unless you had a counselor for a mom or a dad, we were mainly just happy, sad, or mad. And but really, there are other things like
mm,
disappointment and rejection. And
mhm.
when he was at the treatment center, they had a family weekend, and so we were able to go to the family weekend, and they gave us I guess they must have given us a feelings wheel, and they said, go think through all these things, and then we're going to come back, and then you could share these. And so I just went to McDonald's and sat for 2 hours and used that feelings wheel and just wrote out a whole bunch of, I
Yeah.
feel unimportant in our marriage because you've chosen pornography over me, or I feel disregarded or ignored because of this.
Mhm,
And so I
mhm.
feel like those I statements just can create some more conversation and
Yeah.
diffuse that defensiveness,
Yes.
because I mean, a person can't really dispute how I feel.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I think that's a great tool. And then
Mm,
I think when we are approaching our husbands, is to be very clear and to be kind, because I think that we can do both.
yeah.
Now I had plenty of times where I was not kind, but I think being clear is being kind,
Mhm,
because we're setting boundaries, and boundaries are really
mhm.
important. Do you need him to go to counseling? Does he need to meet with a pastor? Do you need an internet filter? Do you need to sleep? Does he need to sleep in the guest bedroom? So I think just having those, having clear, kind boundaries is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certainly we don't need to enable. We don't need to enable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe being as concise as we can.
What? Now say that again.
Being as concise as we can,
Right.
and a lot of us are verbal processors. So I do think what you're saying, like, take time to process, to think through the feelings, to think through, excuse me, let that emotion, that initial anger and rage and wrath and hurt and
Yeah.
all of that, which is very valid, but take some
Yeah.
time to be able to speak without just, like you said, attack.
Yeah.
Because when we just come at attack, we're just met by defensiveness. Because
Yes.
when someone feels backed into the wall, they just come out fighting. They're not even listening,
Yeah.
and I think there is definitely power in, like you said, the I statements instead of
Oh,
just
yeah.
like you, because
Yeah.
all they hear is I got to protect myself and fight. Whereas
Right.
if it's more understood, like I feel this and this, and they can listen more. And like you said, they can get mad at you for how you feel. You
Right.
know, it's like, okay, hold on. Like this is just what it is.
Well, and I do feel like wives can approach this conversation with confidence because this is not God's design for marriage.
Yeah. Yes.
God created marriage to be one man and one woman, not one man and one woman in pornography. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that women can go into this in confidence, knowing that they are standing on the word.
Yes. Yes.
And I think to be prepared with a whole host of responses, because he might deny it, or he might get mad, he might shut down, he might try to shut you down, or he might just admit everything.
Hmm.
And we just need to be ready for whatever his reaction may be, and just know that it's not a reflection of our own worth.
Yeah. And that is extremely hard. And it
Yeah.
is very valid that if you feel that way, if you discover this struggle, or maybe you're just afraid to even bring it up because you don't want to know. Right. I
Oh,
mean, I
because
think that's
ignorance is bliss, right? Until
right
it's not. Yeah.
until it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
I do feel like approaching our husbands takes a ton of courage. And so no matter his response, I just want women to know that they are strong,
Mhm.
that they can do this, and they can get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah. You can, when you have those hard conversations and you do them, like you said, after much prayer, as
Mhm.
much as possible. There are times, yeah, it was just going to happen, and
It's
that's
just
okay.
happening.
That's okay. It's going to happen sometimes. But as much as possible to be coming from a place of prayer and entering into a moment, like I know when I've had to have tough conversations, I'm like, prepare their heart in advance
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
set the timing up, like you said. Be aware of choosing times that set you up for success in your conversation. you know
Right.
don't pick a time when it's 6 o'clock and the dog needs to be walked and the kids are starving and everybody just got home and the laundry. Come on. Right. That's probably better ways to have this conversation. Yeah.
But sometimes it just comes out. And you know
It does.
what? God can use that too. He is still bigger than that.
Yes. Yes, and amen. Thank goodness. In our weakness, his strength is made perfect. So advice for women in the midst of this struggle right now.
I think you have to tell somebody. You
Yes.
you have to tell a safe person, whether it's a counselor or it's a friend or it's a pastor, because we need to be honest, because Satan works in secrecy. And
Yes.
we don't want to allow Satan to hold us captive to shame. And we just want to be able to heal. And we're not going to be able to heal what we can't admit. So we have to tell somebody. Now, it's going to be hard, but we definitely have to tell somebody. And I think it's just important to know that we're not alone, because 64% of Christian men are struggling. So that means they've got girlfriends, they've got wives who are struggling too. So women, there are so many women that are in the same boat, but they're just not talking about it. So women are just silently carrying this burden, and they just don't have to do that. But I think another thing to remember as we're walking through this is that, and I may have said this already, but our husband's actions are his struggles, and they're not our inadequacies.
I like
And
the way you said that.
it's not our fault. We're not fat. We're not ugly. We're not any of the lies, and we are just not defined by their actions. I just want to make sure that women
Mhm.
know that they're not defined by their actions. But
I like the way you said that.
and as we talked about before, just setting boundaries, protecting our heart and protecting our home, and we can still do that while we're pursuing reconciliation or while we're pursuing restoration. And I think the last thing, advice that I would give is, some people really give terrible advice. And we just cannot listen to everybody. If somebody
Yes.
says, oh, be more available in the bedroom, or boys will be boys, or a little pornography doesn't matter, those just don't listen to those people.
Hmm.
We just have
Hmm.
to be selective on who we listen to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And knowing, like, something I keep thinking is just because something's normal doesn't mean it's okay.
That's correct. Yes, I
I
agree.
mean, because you will hear that, oh, it's just, it's normal and it's every man does, no, I don't have to
That
take
doesn't
that.
make it okay.
No, it doesn't. And I actually was with a young lady the other day. She's getting married this weekend, and she is marrying a wonderful Christian man, and it's so great. But she was telling me how that throughout part of her life, she did not believe there was such a thing as a good Christian man who was pure, saving himself, and who didn't look at pornography. She didn't think there was such a thing. Now she's
Wow.
marrying a great one, but she
Yeah.
never thought that even existed. She and her sister used to tell her mom, every guy looks at pornography. There's no such thing
Yeah.
as finding a guy who doesn't do that,
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because that's the message that's out there in the world. And then, of
Mhm.
course, as a mom of a teenage boy, I've got a girl and a boy, two teenagers, and that's the message that's out there. Oh, they all do it. They all do it.
Mhm.
It's just normal. It's okay. Well, when
I,
we normalize it,
I
and the
do
world
feel
tells
like
us,
it's different to be tempted and it's different
yes,
to succumb to that temptation.
yes.
So I do feel like that's important to differentiate that, especially within the church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the temptation, yeah, that is normal. That
Yeah.
temptation
Right.
coming up, that's one of Satan's greatest tactics. Absolutely. And so
Hmm.
I think that that's when we can have a conversation with our husbands, with our sons, like calling it into the light, bringing things out of the darkness takes a lot of that power away.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
just
It
saying,
does.
hey, I know you're going to struggle with this.
Yep.
99% chance you have or will struggle with this
Uh-huh.
because this is the world we live in and this is something Satan uses. But I want you to know that I understand the struggle, but let's put up some safety. Let's see what the word says about this. Let's see
Right.
how we can be proactive, in these things. But knowing that when you struggle, come tell me you're struggling and let's work
Mhm.
together
Right.
instead of, thinking that I'm going to be totally shocked and caught off guard, that this was a
Yeah.
struggle. And have
Yeah.
you ever heard that thing about the bird? I love this, especially with feelings. You cannot help all the feelings you get, right? But you can help what you do with those. So it's like the bird. You can't help if a bird lands on your head, but you can keep him from building a nest there.
That's right.
And so
That's
those
right.
temptations, those thoughts, those struggles that come up, you can't necessarily help what pops into your mind, but you can help if you hold on to it and look at it and consider it and turn it over and over. That's a different situation.
I do feel like that is such a struggle, just addressing the issue and not living in the shame within the
Yes.
church, because I
Yes.
think that uh, there's just a lot of ignorance and a lot of, I don't mean that doesn't, I don't, I'm
I
not
know what you
slamming the church
mean.
because I love the church, but there's
Sure.
not of a lot of people don't know how to talk about pornography or really just things of sexual nature in general.
I
There's
know.
so much
And God
shame in
invented
talking
it.
about it.
It's
I
like
know
church
exactly.
should
So
take
let's talk
sex
about it.
back. It was our thing first.
That's right. That's right.
Let's write a book. The church needs to take back sex. And
Nice.
the church not knowing how to address these things sometimes and needing to step into this space and
Yeah.
address these things that are prevalent and out there within and without the church, right?
Right.
And it needs to be addressed instead of just pretending like it's not there.
Right. Because it's not going away.
Hmm. We need tools to deal with the
Yeah.
things that are there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else that we haven't touched on? I've got, my ending questions here, but anything else about your book or about your story? Who do you recommend get this book?
I recommend that women who are, I, I think all women need this book because if two-thirds of women,
Mhm.
men are struggling, women are struggling, and you have a friend, you have an aunt, you have a cousin, you have a mom, you have a sister who need this book.
Mhm.
And it's a great gift to them to say, here, I'm inviting you to not live in the dark anymore.
Mhm.
Let's face this together and to walk alongside of them. So that's who I feel like needs the book about every woman on the
Yeah,
planet.
yeah, 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 because it's not going away, right?
It's not going away.
Yeah, that's good. So, I like to wrap up my interviews with some same questions I ask all my guests. And the first one is, do you have a life verse or a verse that is especially bringing you life right now?
Yeah, I struggled with shame with being divorced for such a long time. And just 2 months ago, I went to a women's retreat, and you know that song Made for More by Josh Baldwin? There's a line in there that says, "Why do I make a bed in my shame when a fountain of grace is running my way?" And I just felt like God said to me, "You know what? You don't have to live in shame anymore." And it was this amazing, I just felt so set free. And then God said, not only do you not have to live in shame anymore, you don't have to live in all that insecurity. You really can just choose a different way. So that has been very freeing for me. And so from that, it's Romans 8:1, which is therefore is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. So that has been very freeing for me.
That's so good. That's so good. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Get out of that bed.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, I love that. That can go like literally and figuratively. We're struggling with that shame and brings depression, and we just, want to just be in bed and just get away from
hide
everything.
ourselves.
It's like, you don't have to stay there. You've been washed clean. I like that. That's beautiful. So what is a simple or practical tip that you could share with our listeners about how to intertwine their walks with the Lord and their everyday life?
A long time ago, before my children were born, they were still in me. I used to meet with a friend, and we had this book, Praying the Scriptures for Your Children. I don't know if you have that book. It's an amazing book. And so I started praying the scriptures for my children before they were even born. And so now I have Praying the Scriptures for Your Teenagers. I think I'm going to have to get the next one since they've graduated from college now.
Right.
But I am just a big fan of praying scripture. I think because I don't see myself as like super creative. So I don't have to be creative when I pray God's words back to him. So, and even when we were walking through the season when my husband was at the treatment center, they had given us, I think, 5 verses. And so I turned those and, just put a blank in there. And so we would pray, me and my 3 kids would get around our 2 kids. Did I say I have 3 kids? No, I only have 2 kids.
That's funny.
We would get around our ottoman at night and get on our knees and pray those scriptures for him. So I am just a big fan of praying scripture.
And how old were your kids at this time?
They were in 4th grade.
Oh,
so it's been a while.
Yeah. Wow. And that's a whole other book for, how to help your children walk through a time like that.
And what I think is really neat about that is God didn't just show up for me. He showed up for them too. And I don't want my kids to, get into their life and be like, oh, well, God did that in my mom's life or in my dad's life. I wanted them to experience God in their lives, in their heart season thing.
Part of their story.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. I wasn't even realizing. Do you mind? Is it girl, boy?
Boy, girl, both of them.
Boy, girl. All right.
Done. One and done.
I know. I didn't get to do it all at once, but I got one of each, and we're like, all right, we're good. We are good. Oh man. Yeah, I'm probably a very good thing that it wasn't one and done. I had a friend and she had twins, and I think she had one and then she had twins, and she came in and she was like, babies are awesome. Everybody should have them one at a time.
That's so funny.
Like, I can see that. I can see that. So where do you like to send people to get your book?
You can just pick it up on Amazon. There's paperback, there's ebook, and I'm hoping to work on the audiobook soon.
Yeah, that's good.
I do feel like this is one of those books that women are probably like, I don't want that sitting on my nightstand. I can just listen to it.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, I do. I love a good audiobook, especially when the author reads it, because I feel like they know the inflection and the energy that they wanted in that statement, and only they can really convey that. So that's great. All right. Where can people find and connect with you?
At my website, it's jodyallenwrites.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Jody Allen Writes. Okay. So I'll be there.
Wonderful. We'll have everything linked up in the show notes. I am so glad that you came and opened this story for us, and I wish you the absolute best and a massive harvest as you go and you let God use this mess as your message. And I really appreciate your bravery and transparency to do that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
My pleasure. Hey friend, if you enjoyed this episode and you got some good stuff out of it, there's a few options you have. One, you could click that little subscribe button, and also if you would review this podcast, oh my gosh, if you like what you heard, get on there, give it a 5-star review. If you didn't like what you heard, just pretend it never happened, okay? But if you would do a review for me, just take a couple seconds and do that. Not only would I be crazy excited, but also it would just be a great way for us to partner together, for you to help this podcast be seen by more women out there. And you could be a part of helping more women discover these practical ways to apply God's word to just everyday stuff. So I would love it, love it, love it if you could help me out in one of those 2 ways.